Hey there, and welcome to the Bold Badass Business Show, where we bring you badasses from all over the globe. And today, tuning in from British Columbia, we have, correct, Nima?
Correct.
All right, we have Dr. Nima, who is a former chiropractor who does incredible work with people, helping them understand their attachment styles, their leadership styles, and helping us trigger proof our relationships.
Mm.
Whoa. In a world where people are trigger happy, I am
Yep.
so happy, Dr. Nima, that we're bringing this to everybody. So, I got to meet Dr. Nima on the Podcasters Cruise, also known as the New Media Cruise. And I was very impressed with his take on triggers and his commitment to helping us be trigger free so we can create a harmonious world.
Yes. Good
So,
to meet
welcome to
you.
the show.
Good to be here, Dr. Barnsley. I'm really happy to be here. I do want to preface this. It's not about being trigger free. That's a fantasy. Being trigger proof doesn't mean trigger less. It means being able to be responsible and having a plan of action so that we're not operating with our kind of child self in relationships and in leadership and business. So trigger proof doesn't mean trigger less.
Are trigger free. I love that distinction. And when you said being responsible, I thought of response able.
Yes,
Because
that's
when we're
exactly it.
trigger proof, we're response
Mm,
able. We're able to respond in a way that is with equanimity and rather than
mm,
anger or
mhm.
some other strong emotion that
Yeah,
will.
reactivity.
Yes,
Reactivity,
exactly.
and it's not necessarily anger. One of the things we got to look out for, which we're going to talk about on this conversation, is the hiding, the running, or the fawning. These are more insidious ones. It's not the anger that we have to really worry about that erodes relationships. That's definitely part of it, but it's the hiding, the shutting down, the people pleasing and fawning, which are all part of the trauma responses that happen when we haven't done the work.
Beautiful. Yeah. And we got to put the work in. So I have a question for you,
Mm.
Nima. And would you prefer me call you Dr. Nima or Nima?
Nima's great.
Okay, so let me call you Nima,
Sure.
even though we met when you were Dr. Nima, but we'll
Yeah,
call you Nima for now. And
sure,
I know that
sure.
you're releasing that part of your identity. So I want to ask you,
Mhm.
when was that moment that you knew, you know what, my heart or my mind, my soul are no longer really into chiropractic as much as they are into freeing people from their own shadows?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, 10, 15 years of being in practice, I noticed patients coming in to see me with these chronic issues. I would start to notice patterns with them, characteristics, personality characteristics, and people who had long lists. Some people would get better really fast, and others would not, no matter what you threw at them, what doctors they saw. And I saw a patterns of behavior and of kind of like a personality profile. And I realized that most people with chronic pains, chronic disorders, digestive issues, autoimmune are actually dealing with not a physical ailments. They are more upstream. It has to do with relational attachments. On the other side, you say, how long have you been dealing with this issue for? And they say 10 years. And then you ask them, well, what happened 10 years ago? And they'll say, I went through a divorce. My partner had an affair. I lost somebody close to me. And I started to see this really weird kind of crossover between chronic health issues and relationship attachment issues. And it wasn't until I went through my own divorce and series of failed relationships and I understood leading to one that was a trauma bond. That was very highly codependent, that was very toxic. It became volatile and abusive. And I physically became physically abusive, where I completely snapped and lost consciousness, that I woke up and said, wait a second. Okay, so what am I missing here? And I started to go inward and realize that I was avoidantly attached. I didn't really know, what a codependency was. And we were highly in that codependent dynamic. And I just felt like I couldn't leave that situation. I knew I had to, but I couldn't because it didn't feel right for me to leave. It felt more of a threat for me to leave than it did for me to stay because of the repercussions of me leaving. And so in that journey of just stopping trying to work on other people, and I just went in, I realized I started to expose these attachment wounds that I had, these unresolved woundings that were causing me to react in certain ways in relational dynamics. And then I just went to town on working on how to heal them. I did started studying polyvagal theory,
Well, let me pause you for a sec because you've given us so much already to think about. And actually, for those listening, I want to back up a second and ask you to define, if you would, attachment.
Yeah.
And so that people can really understand what we're talking about.
Yeah. Attachment, I want you to think of relationships as like invisible attachments. And so when you have an argument, it's a ruptured attachment. So attachment is the energetic connection between two people. So when that gets ruptured, all sorts of funky stuff happens within our nervous system that brings us back to our primary attachments, which is our parents, right? And so as I went through that journey and I studied polyvagal theory, somatic experiencing, shadow work, and I realized, wow, my whole character of Dr. Nima was this character I created so that I wasn't having to feel this paralyzing fear of abandonment that I felt as a child. And so I went to work on that, healed that, and it's a work in progress, but I met my person, created an online community of other cycle breakers. And I have a 5-year-old now, and just love teaching people how to heal their attachment woundings so that they can not only have healthy relationships, but their health starts to transform as well as they go to work on healing the way that they respond to relational distress. That's the real work.
Very powerful, very powerful. And so many of us have some kind of attachment issues because maybe somebody died when we were young, or maybe somebody left when we were kids. My father left when I was 12, and that sort of stuff impacts us. He left and my brother went with him. And so it was this huge, basically chasm in the family that happened.
It's an abandonment wound, essentially.
It is, exactly. Even though we each kind of left, they left, it was abandonment because I lost that part of my family.
Yeah.
So I think that so many people listening can identify with this. And I hope those of you listening, sometimes when we hear the word trauma, we can think, oh, wow, well, I don't have trauma. What are you talking about? Trauma. But, the truth of the matter is trauma doesn't have to be that somebody comes up and shoots us with a gun. It can be very subtle. Very subtle.
The most important thing to remember is trauma is not what happens to us. It's what's happening inside of us. And it's this charge, it's this life force that we aren't really taught how to move through or work with. In an ideal scenario, you see an animal that goes through some sort of a trauma, like a dog jumps out and they get into a fight. And the dog kind of like, as they move on, they shake it off. You see that they shake it off through their body. That charge, the biology has this desire to discharge all of that energy. And when we go through ruptures with our family, when we see abuse, if we don't, or even big emotions that are expressed, and then we have a parent that says, stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about, or you're left, in bed and you're crying and they're doing the cry it out method, and there's no adult to be there with you to help you regulate that, that charge gets stuck in your body. And so it's not what's happening to us, it's inside of us. And there was no empathetic witness to sit there and help us discharge that. So it stays within us and it gets activated throughout our lives through triggers. And once we get that trigger happened, we regress back to that childlike state. And now in this moment, we are not like adults. We have now regressed and become that child again. That's why it looks like when you're arguing with somebody, you see them like, why are they acting like a child? It's because literally in that moment, they regress.
So powerful. Yes. And the ages to which we regress depend on our own timeline and our own life. You know, there's
what
not
we've been carrying. Yeah. What we've been carrying. Yeah.
What we've been carrying. I remember in transformational leadership, one thing we did with pillows, and we had to beat these chairs, you know, and scream the whole time. And boy, we really got into it, but it was about releasing. It was about letting go of that charge.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to just write about it, is it?
No. Meditation and writing and journaling are all valuable tools. But when you have experienced kind of any type of trauma that causes that charge where, let's say you were trapped and you couldn't run or you couldn't fight back, you can't just journal or meditate or pray your way out of that. Your biology needs to physically discharge somatically what you've been carrying. So running and punching and kicking, getting it out and expressing what you don't have a chance to is really important. And I mean, it accumulates. I mean, my five-year-old, he's just started kindergarten. So now look at all of this overstimulation, all this energy, kids coming in, there's playground, there's bullying, and he's coming home when we pick him up and he's carrying all of it. And so I'm so glad that I'm aware of this work, because now when he needs to get it out, we can then hold that space so that he can get out his anger that just happened earlier in the schoolyard. Right. And if we didn't know this, he would be displaying this anger and we'd be like, stop being angry, go to your room. And we would punish him for his anger. But this time, when we see him discharging it, we're able to hold that space and allow him to move into that activation into the puddle of tears so that he can discharge it. But our parents didn't know how to do that. So we often are carrying all of this unresolved anger, sadness, loneliness, grief in our bodies. And then now over time, we have mental illness. We have relational attachment issues where these things get triggered and we have no idea that it's our younger selves just asking, begging for a discharge of all of this energy that we've been carrying all this time.
Begging for us to witness. You used that word earlier. To witness what happened, you know, and some of that has to be certainly witnessing. And I talk very freely about this, Nima, by the way, but I was definitely abused. I was physically abused and abused by a sibling and also sexually abused. And for those of us who've been through this, which is many people, many men and women and men, and a lot of it at the hands of siblings, which people don't like to talk about. But when we've been through these sorts of things, we get stuck or we get mired in that time. And and we've got to do something. We've got to do all sorts of methods, I think, of release. You mentioned somatic. So tell people a little bit about some of the somatic methods that are out there. I've certainly found that Reiki has been incredible for me for the past 33 years.
Yes. Reiki is an energetic method, and the practitioner is kind of like moving energy and tuning in, and it's that kind of thing. Somatic experiencing is the practice of returning your attention back inward and orienting to your inner body experience when these emotions are happening. Because what happens is, as a child, nobody sat us down and taught us how to expand our capacity for these emotional experiences like anger, like sadness, like fear. So because they were so scary, we have a tendency to escape up into our minds, and we go into these kind of anxiety loops because the alarm in our body feels so painful. And so we end up trying to think our way out of these issues. And somatic experiencing is the modality that really helped. It was the missing piece for me. It was, I realized that I was using all these personal development and transformational methodologies to avoid the pain, to avoid an escape and bypass the pain of loneliness, the pain of shame, the pain of guilt, because all of those emotions carry energy in our bodies. And we hate those feelings. So we try to avoid them. We do crystals, we do yoga, meditation, and retreats. All of these things are great modalities. But what I realized is a vast majority of people are using personal development to avoid the charge and the discomfort in their body. And somatic experiencing is really about expanding our capacity to contain and hold the charge of all of those what are called negative emotions that we're trying to get rid of, so that we can then alchemize it into wisdom. We can then really build the muscle of being able to contain the charge. And this is what being trigger proof really is all about.
Ah, that's amazing. I love that example that you gave us. And you were talking about polyvagal theory earlier, and how important it is, you know, with the vagus nerve, which is back here and carries so much. I'm sure you can describe this much better than I can, but carries so much of our body's wisdom to the rest of the body, right? When we've got a stuck point, you know, it's like a clog in your toilet. Nothing's going to flush. Nothing's going to move, you know, and we've got to address where that stuck place is.
Yeah. Do you have a question for me?
No, I was just thinking about that at this point. I'm just ruminating on it.
You're ruminating on it. I'm looking for a question here. So yeah, let me add to what you're talking about. The polyvagal theory, the vagus nerve is cranial nerve number 10, and it is responsible for the autonomic function, the way that we kind of like internal environment of the body relates with our external environment. And 4 times every second, your nervous system is registering for threats. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? So the polyvagal theory is the neuroscience of safety within the internal body and the body's attempt to cope with threat. And without an understanding of what the sensations are like and the different pathways, for example, the sympathetic fight or flight, or the dorsal vagal pathway, which is the freeze response or the fawn response that kind of goes into a collapse or a shutdown because the threat is just too much, too soon, and just overwhelming threat that the body just feels safer in shutting down. If we don't understand these different kind of phases and how to operate our system, we then mislabel a dorsal vagal shutdown with depression. Right. So a lot of times people are, I believe, are misdiagnosed with depression, where their nervous systems are just in what's called a dorsal vagal shutdown, which is the back pathway of the vagus nerve, which is there to protect you when you are like a predator is coming at you and the bear is about to eat you. The gazelle plays dead. Why? Well, because if I'm like not fighting or running, then my predator's nervous system can calm down. It has an increased likelihood of me saving my life, right? So these coping or adaptive strategies for safety become maladaptive in our relational dynamics in our day-to-day lives. And to heal that, we have to go back and really understand our biology, the survival stress of our body that's contained in our animal bodies. And we have to learn how to move that energy through us. And it's great to have co-regulators like therapists, Reiki, and that kind of thing. But essentially, we must learn how to be the active operator of our own nervous systems. And understanding the polyvagal theory is the first place that I take my students and my clients to that awareness, so that they can actually learn self-love. Self-love, which we all talk about as a buzzword, I realized that the polyvagal theory was my access point to self-love. Understanding what my system needed and giving it that is the highest form of self-love that I can do.
Okay, I love this. I love this quote. The polyvagal theory was my access to self-love. That's something you definitely need to write down and use that for something.
Yeah.
Something, Nima,
Yeah.
because that's very provocative.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks,
Yeah,
Coach.
my coach hat is coming on.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
Your coach
man,
hat doesn't shut off, does it?
no, it will shut off.
Yeah, I
It does
appreciate
shut
that.
off, but that
Thank
is
you.
such a great turn of phrase.
Yeah, it is.
And
It
it's
really
something
was
that
it.
I've never heard before.
Yeah,
And
that's
I do
part of my
read a
teaching.
lot of this stuff. I love The Body Keeps the Score. I love the work of Dr. Gabor Mate. I'm reading some of his books now. I love, and I've always been fascinated by how our bodies store what has happened to us. Our bodies are so intelligent that instead of having us go fling ourselves off of a high building when we get abused, our bodies will just dissociate.
Yeah.
Let's go over here.
Yeah.
And we'll be okay that way.
It's like the soul leaves the body, right? And healing is really bringing the soul back into the body. And unfortunately, experiencing and feeling all of the pain that we've been elegantly trying to avoid to cope and to move forward with life. But then what'll happen is women will come up to me and say that I'm a successful lawyer, I'm a financial advisor, my business is 7 figures, but I just can't do relationships. I just don't have intimacy. And what happens is that those coping strategies from childhood of leaving your body and dissociating, which you sometimes need to do to keep your business going and just power through, you can't get away with it in your you cannot get away with it in intimate relationships and parenting, because your intimate relationships and your children will reflect all of your own dissociation and will call you out on it. And so what I look for when I'm seeing somebody's evolution is, I'm so impressed. Thank you that you have congrats for your 7-figure launch, but do you have a partner at home that really enjoys being with you? That's the real flex to me, because it demonstrates a deep level of healing and evolution from all of our protective, adaptive, egoic, dissociative states. Because in relationship with our children and love, that's the real kind of test of somebody's nervous system evolution, because they are able to carry charge and they're able to hold space for themselves. And so that's something that I look for when I'm watching somebody's evolution, is how they're relating with the people closest to them. Are they just on stage, just promoting something and putting on a show? Because you can't put on a show with your partner or your children. They'll be able to see right through that shit.
They can see right through it. And I love that. I adore that about being a parent, is that, it's also happens with our animals too. Our animals will start to reflect back to us anything that we've got going on. Anything. And I believe it happens with our cars too, Nima. Have you ever had your car do something bizarre and then you find out, oh,
you're putting out some sort of a weird energy with that.
Yeah, exactly. The world is going to mirror back to us.
Yeah.
Whatever the energetic state that we have is, I very much agree with you. And getting into our hearts and our bodies is very, very challenging, would you say, in this world, because people are just in this mental space most of the time. It's the reason why in graduate school, I just was very unhappy for much of it, because I wanted to be living in my heart and my mind, not just in my mind.
Well, in an ideal scenario, everybody says they want to live in their heart. But the truth of the matter is that when you really start to do the deep work, you realize that we're carrying a lot of pain in our hearts. We're carrying abandonment, we're carrying rejection, we're carrying grief. So it makes sense why we avoid being in our heart. Everybody wants to be more loving and in their hearts. But have you sat in your shame? Have you sat with the guilt that you've been feeling? Have you really allowed yourself to process the grief? And so it's in this integration of our shadow parts of us that we've been conditioned to avoid, dismiss, or deny. It's in the integration of all those parts and feeling and releasing all of those emotions where our hearts start to expand and expose. So everybody says they want to be in their hearts, but can they sit in their shame and their guilt and their
and
grief?
their shit.
Yeah. And so there's a duality in there. So the greater your capacity for your shame and guilt, the greater your capacity for love. The greater your capacity for your insecurities, the greater your capacity for a secure relationship. So if you don't want to feel them, if you want to keep avoiding them, your insecurities, then you're not ready for a secure relationship. So it's really by diving into our shadows where we get the gold, the love, the connection, the secure attachment comes from the other side of that. But very many people aren't willing to go there, or they say not right now, or now's not the time, because when's a good time for us to really face those parts of us we've been avoiding all our lives
and be vulnerable.
Correct. Right? Correct.
And that's the thing. And vulnerability is courageous in this day and age. It's a courageous thing to speak openly and be open. I've about things that have happened to us in service to others, so that somebody else feels like they're not alone, or someone else knows there is some hope. There is an opportunity for change out there.
Yeah.
You know, and it really sounds like, Nima, that in the relationships that you went through, and you called them failed relationships, I almost don't think there is such a thing as a failed relationship, because it's just
lessons. They're not really failures. They're lessons.
Experience, right? Yeah. They were experiences, and we all have them. We all have them. And I'm not just referring to the romantic ones. I'm referring to the business ones, the neighborly ones, the whatever, friendships. We all have those in our lives, and to be able to coexist with the reality that the possibility of relationship also means the possibility of lack thereof at times, you know? I like what you say about our shadow is our source. Our shadow is our greatest source to connect. I'm paraphrasing you on that, but I believe this is true, because nobody likes a perfect person. Have you ever? I don't like perfect people who appear perfect. Yeah, I distrust it, because I know we all have our crap.
Yeah, yeah. Being real is really what we're craving, is authenticity, right? We have this because of the experiences in our lives. We've had to adapt by creating a false self, this mask of perfection, this mask of, hey, I'm the teacher, I got this all, let me show you how smart I am, right? And then what happens is this mask is there to hide from this part of us that we're ashamed of, this insecure, this really vulnerable part, and we end up exiling this part, and this fracture from the self, this egoic false self, becomes how we show up in relationships. So it's no wonder where relationships just feel transactional, or they feel incongruent or inauthentic. And so when you're saying nobody likes a perfect person, well, this whole polished, pretty, trying to look good doesn't actually feel right to the person who's really working on becoming more authentic. The deeper I go with my own work in really healing and connecting with these parts of me that I've been judging, I can now spot people who are putting on a show a lot more. And there's this sense of like, okay, this sense of a lack of trust that's built with somebody who has not integrated with their shadows, with their shameful parts, because we don't like, we inherently know that human beings are two-sided. So we crave authenticity because
Right.
everything's
The
a show.
range. This is the range of it. You know, you're making me think about in 12-step programs, there's the fourth and fifth step where you write down your shortcomings, right? And another way to put that is you write down your shadow side. And then what I've found is that in doing that, on that side, usually those very same things are also part of the strengths.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm extremely stubborn. I am a stubborn person, and that is the shadow part of it. Is like stubborn, strong-willed, opinionated. But the great side of it is I never give up.
Yeah.
And I don't give up on other people maybe fast enough as I should sometimes, but I don't give up. I persist. I keep going.
Yeah.
And that's the positive side of that shadow. So what do you think of this? And that the 12 step
Well,
for that.
essentially in my trainings that I do, what I have people write down to expose that shadow is, what are you trying to prove to the world? Right? What is it that you're trying to prove to the world? And when you look at, you see, and you're really honest, if you want to ask yourself this question.
Yeah, I want to prove I matter.
I want to prove I matter. I want to prove that I'm intelligent, that I'm accomplished.
Yeah.
That I know my shit, that I know my shit and all this stuff. Okay, great. Congrats. So this is the front-facing thing of what you're trying to prove to the world. Well, here's what I want. Here's what I'm going to get you to do now. Now, write the exact opposite of each of those traits that you just put up. Well, I don't matter. I'm worthless.
Dumb.
I'm dumb. I'm a loser. And I'm
not worth it.
I'm not worthy. Okay, great. Yeah. Welcome to your shadow part. This, Dr. Barnsley, represents a part of you that exists in your history that you're looking at with such disdain that because of the pain and shame of that version of you, let's say it was 10 years ago, after a really difficult period in your life, that's how you kind of caught yourself showing up. Or maybe that was your 8-year-old self. I'm not sure. But that represents your shadow, the part of you that you can't stand. Now you got to now look at this disdain or this contempt for this aspect of you. Then you ask the question, so what is it? What behaviors do I do to make sure nobody sees me that way? Well, I have a book. I have a podcast. I'm working 24 hours a day and putting up this, putting on this show of, hey, look at me. I'm Dr. Nima. I'm this and that. I put on all of this act. I people please. I work 24 hours a day. I completely just go, never stop. I don't rest. And all of these behavioral kind of, what is the word, neuroses that I go through on a day-to-day basis was all an attempt to run away from a part of me that I hate. And so now we start to expose the shadow, which is, you don't see it, it's unconscious. And Carl Jung says, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you'll call it fate. So shadow work is really looking at these unwanted parts of myself and learning how to, instead of running away from, turning towards them, bringing compassion, empathy, understanding, and really getting like a deep understanding of those parts of me so that I can live in a way where I'm not trying to run away from a part of myself. I'm feeling more comfortable in my own skin. I'm able to take the mask off. I don't need to go, hustle, interrupt people all the time to try to prove my worthiness, because I already know that I am. And this was the magical transformation in my life. So from that understanding, I could now welcome intimacy and relationships, because if I'm not okay with my shadow, other people will start to trigger me Other parts of people will trigger me. The parts of me that I am not okay with, I'll see them in other people and I'll get triggered by them. That's called projection. And as I'm projecting that shadow on other people, I'll push them away and intimacy becomes impossible for me because I'm not okay and intimate with my own shadow. And relationships and parenting is the greatest reflector of my own shadow that I'm not okay with. And until I get okay with those parts, don't expect parenting and relationships to work.
And there you have it, you all. A summation right there.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. What's wrong with us all?
No, we are a society that is running from our shadows, and
yes.
The more we run away from them, the more we see them in other people, and then we judge them and go,
and the more angry we become.
We become angry and we vilify others, which cause us to justify great harm to others because we aren't wanting to look at ourselves. And this is where war happens. This shadow, the more that we deny our shadow, the more we vilify other people who express it, and it justifies really horrendous behavioral acts because those are other people. We can't see that they're a reflection of ourselves.
That's so powerful. And especially in this current context where we have so many people, so many fighting groups, and so much hatred in the US and in the world, to really we got to clean up our side of the street, we got to clean up our side of the street.
I've been saying it. It's true that we say that, but I love the fact that I've created a container for people to actually do that work.
Yes.
So it's not just lip service. They're actually resolving these unresolved parts of themselves, so they're not having to project it onto other people, so that their relationships can work and success. So you can have success and intimacy at the same time. Like it's not mutually exclusive, but most entrepreneurs, especially, I got to say, boss babe females, they haven't really put that together yet. And I'm committed to teaching people how to get there, because it's possible if they're willing to do the work.
Well, I think one of the reasons for the boss babes, right, is that we have actually had to take on masculine energy to make it in our corporate jobs. If people are in corporate jobs or our university jobs or wherever, we've taken on masculine energy to make it. Totally. And that masculine energy makes us have to be,
armored
yeah.
up. Exactly. So it's fair to say, and not only that, you're talking about society's conditioning. Of course, that's the case, but also the wounding. When you've been hurt, if I'm a little boy that's been hurt by his mother, then I'm going to have a story about women, am I not? I'm going to be suspicious of women. I'm going to not trust women. Right. Well, similarly, when a woman has been hurt by a man, whether it's father, the abandonment wound, betrayal, whatever, we're carrying all of that in our bodies, and that's contributing to the armor. So not only do we have all the conditioning from society that you just talked about, but also the wounding that's been unresolved. And then now it creates this armor and this boss babe army that of women who are exhausted, who are trying to do it all, and they don't feel soft. They don't feel safe in surrendering. They don't feel safe in receiving, and they're exhausted and they're miserable and they don't have healthy relationships, but they're hustling like men and they're tired and they are just exhausted and they want to learn how to heal. And that's something that I didn't realize was so important right now, but this is the container I love holding space for, so that women can experience safe masculine guidance and then let the armor down and then soften the way that they deep down really want to, so that they can have the businesses, but then come to a home where they can kind of like surrender and not have to take charge all the time.
And I want to
honor your biology.
Oh, yes. Honor biology. And I want to say that men too are suffering.
Oh my gosh.
This suffering terribly because, and we've had some shows about this, talking about how men are pushed into these, again, armored positions and not allowed to, for example, if you want to be a house husband while your wife is the breadwinner, oh my God, watch out. You know, you're going to encounter ridicule. You're going to encounter, or if you're sitting in a beautiful movie and you're crying, you know, somebody's going to say, "Oh, are you okay?"
Yeah. We have a very toxic relationship with emotional expression as it
Yeah,
is. So with men and all that, but men need men to
yeah,
connect with, and then to express and to feel seen and heard and understood.
and give
And
permission.
yeah, exactly. And so we need that. And both men need men, women need women, and women also need healthy men. And so I'd love to be a part of the solution to that, because I had challenges with it before, and I'm grateful that this is the path that I'm on. And I love teaching people who are really ready to just own their own inner power that they've been giving away through their victim stories.
I love that. Yeah. And we've got to banish those victim stories. You know, it's so important if we want to be in 100% responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
response ability, right?
Yeah.
For our lives. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we all do have, I call, well, I have an inner critic I call Helga with 2 L's, Nima, because she'll put you in hell, you know, but I also have whiny girl. Right. And this was something I created with my daughter years ago when she would be whining about something. And I'd say, could just lock whiny girl into the closet for today and go have some fun? Is that okay? Can we do that? And we do that and we'd be laughing and then we go have fun. Right. But whiny girl, I realized is very much, I have a part of myself that's whiny girl. You know, we all have that little whiny, wah, 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 sort of like Charlie
Yeah.
Brown
Yeah.
going off.
There's a child inside of all of us, and we're secretly wanting somebody to come and save us and rescue us. And so
Yes.
the work then becomes to be that adult for
For
the younger
ourselves.
part of us. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it gives new meaning to the phraseology of reparenting ourselves. You know, we're learning, as you said, to be fully responsible for our own nervous system. And
Yes.
our nervous systems these days are nervous. They're
Yeah.
nervous.
Yeah. 100%.
100% nervous. Well, we're coming to the moment where we need to wrap, and I know, Nima, that
Sure.
you and I could talk about this for days.
Yeah.
And I love the work that you're doing. I think it's so important. And my challenge to everybody listening is to think of a way that you can be vulnerable, that you can share something that is very real, and do it on social media. You just never know what'll happen.
Mm.
No, I'm not saying, implicate yourself in something. I don't want to come visit you in the prison, whatever. But share something that's deep within you, about something that comes from maybe how you were raised and what you felt was missing there, and how you give that to yourself now, or maybe how you don't give that to yourself now. I
Mm.
think that's going to be powerful for others. And it is that time, you all, one of my favorite times in the show, where we give away something amazing. And I've already heard what Dr. Nima is giving us, which is really fantastic. You're going to want to get your pencil out and write this down. Write this down, this URL, so you can go get it. It is bit.ly/free from Dr. B. I made it rhyme to make it easy. Free from DRB. bit.ly/free from DRB. And you'll just go in there. We don't share your information. You'll be able to access the VIP sponsors, everything they have at the top of the page, and then scroll on down and check out the episodes and the gifts that you want to receive. All of it 100% free for you. So, because we're here to promote you, Nima, and also we're here to promote all of you listening, your business. We want you to have the greatest success and give the impact in the world that you're meant to give. So, Nima, would you share with them what you are giving?
Yeah, I have a attachment style quiz, which is the very best place to begin, so that you understand what your attachment style is, whether you're secure, you are anxious or avoidant, and this quiz really highlights what your kind of like leadership style is. I call it the trigger proof quiz. It's kind of like an attachment style quiz for leaders. So it's a great place to begin. And then your spits out your answer. And then if you have any questions, you can reach out.
Beautiful. And it's going to allow us to really understand, have some self-awareness. Have
100%.
some self-awareness.
That's where it all begins.
That's where it all begins. So with that, I was going to ask you what your final words would be to everyone. Do you have one final thing you'd like to say other than that gem right there?
There's a quote that came to me in the middle of kind of like a lucid dream, which was, the highest form of forgiveness is the authentic recognition that everything served and that there is nothing to forgive. And this is the goal of our inner work, to get to a place of seeing that what happened wasn't on the way. Sorry, wasn't in the way. It was actually on the way. When you're there, you can alchemize anything you've gone through and use it as medicine to light the way for others.
Beautiful. Would you repeat that first sentence again? Because that was incredible.
The highest form of forgiveness is the authentic recognition that everything served you and that there is nothing to forgive.
Beautiful. It was all just what it was meant to be, so that you can have the impact and the journey that is yours, and share that journey with others. Thank you so much, Nima, for being with us. It's been great to have you here. So many words of wisdom in what you've provided. And I hope those of you listening will put your ahas in the chat, and also share this with someone you can see is struggling. Because guess what? I think they'll feel so much better after they listen to this episode. And as we close, I'd say some of you may not feel like a bold badass right now. I can assure you there are many moments I don't feel like a bold badass business owner. But I know that you are deep inside that bold badass, or you would not have come and been with us today for this entire time. And I look forward to seeing you next Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Thanks, everybody. And thanks again, Nima.